So, Rusty, thank you so much for that. I got to thank you this morning from the person you helped, saying thank you so much from them. They really, really appreciated it. So I got to say thank you. Always looking for opportunities to share what God's done for us, and you guys are amazing at what you do. This is the last Sunday we're going to be working on and talking about the series that we've been doing called Gathered. And we've talked a lot of different things as we talk about this idea as we're coming out of Easter. Easter is this moment, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which changes everything for us as a follower of Jesus Christ. It is this moment where we stop and we look at it and go, I follow the guy who died and rose again. You can talk about following a guy who has wise wisdom. That's great. You can talk about following a guy who you think might have some answers and some solutions, but I'm going to follow the guy who died and rose again. If you want someone who has answers, that to me is this moment that says it changes everything. And so Easter begins this moment. As Jesus was preparing his disciples for this moment when he would die and he would rise again, he began to say, hey, who do men say that I am? And there was all sorts of debate over, well, some say you're a prophet, some say you're John the Baptist rose from the dead, some we just don't. And Jesus looks at him and says, but who do you say that I am? Peter, being the one who always stood up first and was always willing to say, me, Jesus, you are the Messiah, the Son of our living God. And Jesus looked at Peter and says, Peter, you don't really understand what you've said. Well, he didn't quite say that, but I'm sure he was thinking it. But he says, you're absolutely right, Peter. And upon the statement that you have made, I will build my gathering. And the word that he uses is the word ecclesia. And the word ecclesia is not the actual word church in the Greek. There's a different word for that. But it's the word that has to do with a gathering, a group of people who come aside for a distinct purpose. You are my gathering. And I'm on this phrase, Peter, upon your statement, I'm going to build my gathering. And the resurrection of Jesus Christ pulls us to this moment that we understand that he is our Savior. He is the Son of the living God. And it changes everything. We've gone and we looked at this idea that church is for us, but it's not about us. We talk about this idea how we sometimes get things confused a little bit because we begin to think church is for us and about us. And we begin to look at this idea that it's for us, but it's not about us. And if it's for us, how do we need to begin to stop and make church relevant for those who he came and made it for? I'm going to finish up today one more. And by the way, I've specifically held this one off for last because I kind of want to talk about where to from here. This last week, I was reading an article that literally broke my heart. It was an article about a church that was 150 years old, had been the first Protestant church in its community. It was 150-year-old. It was a church that had a proud history behind it. It had started many churches around it. It had been part of, this unbelievable history. And today, this last week, it had voted to close the doors after 150 years. This church in the 1970s was averaging over 1,000 people per Sunday. And today, with less than 50 people attending, it saw that it had no hope. And as a pastor, that always, every time we hear about it, it breaks our heart. And can I just say for the moment, it really broke my heart because at the one time, it sort of reminds me of our church. Now, before I go any further, I want to say this. I absolutely love our church, and I believe Milestone Baptist Church has a bright future. But as we look at it, there's this thing that as we look at it, we go, but is our glory days in the past? We've got a proud history. Milestone Baptist Church started in 1922. Wow, think about that. We're now 100 and going on 102 years old. We have had, I was going to say, some of you have been around that long. No, none of you have been around that long. None of you have seen it. But we can go back through it. And as I'm looking, Marie's been here since the 1960s. I'm trying to remember when I was looking at Marie's membership date. It's been a long time. Marie's now in here, there is no one who can compete with Marie. Marie, what Marie says goes, okay? But we have a long, proud history, and some of you guys have seen and been a part of. So thinking out there, Velma this week, if she's out watching online, some of you guys have seen this long, proud history that Milestone has. Milestone has had a history of, in fact, being a part of, and I was trying to count up, I was going back through some of the minutes and stuff, but it's had a history of being a part of starting, I don't know how many churches, both around our area, being part of starting churches even overseas. It's had a huge history and a part of starting many churches over the years. It's been a part of Bible colleges in our area in the past. It's had huge, in the past, big bus runs. I mean, you guys have done it all. And sometimes as we look at it, we begin to go see ourselves with where we're at. And I want to say this. You guys continually step up. And there's time after time when you're refocused and move forward. And once again, we do something great. God has blessed us as a church. Can I just be honest with you? God has been good to us. And so for a moment, before we kind of talk about where we want to start going, I want us to just stop and look around us. In 1922, Milestone started on the corner of R Street and Cervantes in a little wooden, you know the little small wooden Florida wood houses? That's basically what it started in. 22 members, I wrote it down here somewhere, 26 members in 1922. In 1937, it moved to W Street, and on W Street, it had several different building phases. It had a couple of different buildings. One of them burnt down, another one had to be rebuilt. It got to a place where even that building was remodeled. It's been around for a long time. In 1996, Pastor Harris moved from W Street and moved up here once again, and Milestone thrived. And I want to say, as we look around, God has been good to us. We got wonderful facilities, don't we? I mean, really, God has been good to us. And as we look around, as we've just finished remodeling, once again, the children's department, it's fun to go over there. And I still love going over there and seeing the remodeling that's happened over there. I love going over into our new adult wing where we're starting to work through over there. I just love what God's done for us. And the thing is that sometimes we look around and we go on a Sunday morning, we get a little bit discouraged because we sit here and we go, but there's only a few of us. And on a day like today, when everybody is out of town for different reasons, it's kind of like, where is everybody? And we kind of go, I don't know. But I want to remind us, what are we doing? How are we affecting our community? Sometimes it's easy for us to look and say, I don't know what we're doing. Can I just say, as we're looking at our facilities, this is a place that is not the church. I love our facilities, but this is not our church. This is our meeting place. The facilities we have only allow us to do other things, but it's not our church. It's our building. It's not sacred. It's a place that is to be used. And I want to say, you guys as a church has allowed your building to be used for many different things. Right now, last year we had our volleyball courts being used for some external volleyball team, local young people volleyball team that were practicing out there. Today, every week, you have a school bus that stops and parks in your parking lot and loads people up and unloads people. Well, kids, so they can go to school and have a drop-off point in a safe spot. You have a facilities that, I want to say, has opened its door to HOAs. And today, I don't know how many HOAs I think we've had something like 5 or 6 different HOAs who've already used our facilities this year already. They're not much, is it? But it's that spot of saying, hang on, still as we go forward, we're looking to continually find ways. How do we as a church find a way to meet relevant needs of our community? Is this enough? No, we know it. But we need to stop and remind ourselves, hey, even today as a church, we need to be doing what we can do and focus upon what we can do, not discourage ourselves because of what we can't. God has been good to us. You see, it's not our facilities that give us our strength, though. They're amazing. You know where our strength comes? Look across the aisle. You see each other? Here's the amazing thing. For a church our size, you guys have gone way beyond. It is estimated usually that 10% of a congregation does 90% of the work. It doesn't happen that way here. You know why? Because if only 10% was doing it, nothing would get done. You guys continually step up week after week. You guys volunteer in the children's department, in the nursery. You guys, week after week, you guys do coffee time. You guys get up and you serve, wait at the doors. You guys, where does it stop? You guys continually volunteer. Craig, week after week, I can only say thank you for Craig and Connor and Todd. We go through. We got our elders who stand up and keep the budget on track, keep the things in. It's amazing at how so few people do so much. Our strength does not lie in our facilities. Our strength lies in you and your dedication. It's not just your ability to volunteer. You guys have financially kept the doors open. Your generosity has kept the lights paid, the air conditioner running, the valves that freeze during the winter. And to keep the doors open, you guys have been amazing. Not only while you're keeping the doors open, your generosity has given far above what I can imagine. Manna Food Bank, Waterfront Rescue Mission, Pensacola Dream Center. You guys have given to overseas missionary year after year, on top of picking a Christmas offering to go to Operation Christmas Child, on top of another offering you guys pick. You guys are amazing. And as we look at it, let's be honest. We can go, it is amazing what God has allowed us to do, but doesn't at the same time, there are times when we get a little bit tired and rusty, we go, our back aches. As we're out in the sun for a couple hours and you're feeling that, you're going, I was saying, Rusty, what did you get me into here? No. But there's moments when it's easy to grow tired and it's easy to look around and say, does it matter? And yes, it does matter. You guys have done amazing. And you need to stop and take a moment and just really celebrate what God has done in you, through you, with you. But it's not enough. Isn't that the worst thing to say when you're already tired? Pastor, we're doing so much. Let's just go. It's not enough. Why is that? Because we have a future. We have a future that says that the past is not just something that we should take pride in, but we need to look towards the future because I believe God's got something great still in store for us. Our best days are not behind, they're in front of us. And to help us to kind of focus on this, I want to focus on 3 words this morning that as a church, It's what we are. We kind of started this a little bit last week, and I'm going to touch a little bit on what we did last week, but I'm going to just focus on 3 words that are going to help us to focus on where we have got to go. I'm going to give us 3 words. Here we go. Number 1. I tried to do these goofy things, pastors, preachers, we all do this where we try to do something and we try to make all of them start with the same letter or something like that because, alliterate it. It's crazy. But I'm going to try to give you 3 words to help us remember. Okay, here we go. First one is faith. What we have got to stop as we look at is this word faith. We know Hebrews chapter 11:6, where the writer of the book of Hebrews says this: it is impossible to please God without faith. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. One of the things that I want to talk about is what helps us to look forward and helps us to keep on track is we're going to talk about this word faith. When we get together, when we gather together, we begin to see our faith as, and by the way, this is not here's what we need to do. This is what we do. This is what we already are. We're simply saying here's what we've got to keep continually refocusing on. Is as we continue to focus on our faith, is how do we be real? As a church, we have consistently tried to be careful not to be a church that gets distracted by what other people tell us is what's important. We're not worried about what companies tell or what they put on their coffee cups. That's not what we're concerned about. We're concerned about what affects our lives, what changes us, what's going on in our hearts. We stop and try as a church to continually say, we're not going to be distracted by what others tells us is important. Instead, we're going to focus on what is important. Milestone Baptist Church is not a club. It is a place where we come to live out our faith. We believe that our faith should give a person hope and a chance for the future. We focus on how Jesus says he can make our lives better. It's not pretending we haven't made mistakes, because honestly, as we look through this room, the reality is that we all know we've all sinned. Each and every one of us this morning cannot get up and start throwing stones at others, because we know as we look in the mirror, there's usually a lot more fingers that get pointed back at ourselves than the ones we're pointing at. And we stop and we say we have to have a faith that is real, that is not sitting there saying, how do we wield it against other people, but how do we allow it to do surgery on us? Our faith must change our own lives. Jesus, as he continued to talk to his disciples, continued to say things like this: by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. When you focus on what you are called to be, it changes those who are around you. Faith. As a church, we see our Bible as having the answers to our problems. The solutions that we have are found in its words. So, as we continue to move forward, and by the way, as we talk about it, we already do this. This is what we do. This is what you already stand for. This is what you believe. Number 2, we talk about a word called family. Faith, family. Paul tells us in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. Treat older women as you would your mother, and treat younger women with all purity as you would your own sisters. You see, Milestone Baptist Church has always acted and must continue to act as a family. We know we need to grow, don't we? I think we look around this morning and we say, there is not one of us in here who says, I think we've gotten too big. We all know this morning that as a church, we need to grow, partly because God tells us we are to pass our faith on. Yet no matter the size that we are or the size that God will allow us to be, we have got to continue to remember that family must be our focus. We are a church that continually and intentionally stops and says, how do we look across the aisle and see someone who is different than I, and I'm willing to go across the aisle and hug them on the neck anyhow? We focus on not on that which distracts us, or we try to not focus on that which divides us, but we try to focus on that which unites us and brings us together, and that is that we have a Savior called Jesus Christ, and He calls us to gather in His name. As a church, I am so thankful, and by the way, you guys do this brilliantly, and all I can do is say thank you, but we're as a church that continually encourages that if you see someone who's not here, call them, let them know that you missed them. In fact, by the way, there's some cards on the back table. If you see someone or thinking of someone, we intentionally do this. Started this last week. Grab a card, write a note in it, put it in the envelope, seal it. I'll put the address on it, I'll put the stamp on it, and I'll mail it for you. If you have their address already and you would like to do it, you're welcome to do that. We as a church don't give out addresses anymore. But if you're thinking of someone and you don't have their address, would you say, hey, I'll write them a note and I will stamp it and mail it for you? Why do we do that? Because we are a family, and we must see each other as family, and we must care for each other as a family. When someone goes into hospital, you guys are brilliant. Many of you get there before I do. Why do we do that? Because we're family. When you guys stop and you hear about someone who's going through a good time, you don't stop and say, that's not fair. What do? We cheer them on. New job, new car, new whatever. We stop and say, hey, congratulations. How can I? That's wonderful. Why do we do that? Because we're a family. You see, it's not about the size that we are or the size that God would have us to become. We must remember this. One, we're called to continue to grow in our faith. Two, we're called to continue to see each other as family. Number three, I'm going to go on real quickly. Family, faith. Now here's where we're going. Forward. I couldn't think of anything else. Okay, that's my 3 F's. Family, faith, and forward. Okay, you might remember that. Family, faith, forward. We know that as a church, we have got to continue to move forward. Pastor Harris used to tell us this. What does not change and grows, anyone remember? Dies. And we know that. We know there is no such thing as standing still. You can't. Because that which does not change and move forward will die. And we know this. Let's honor our past. Let's give thanks for the countless number of people who've gone before us and have dedicated and sacrificed so that we can sit here this morning in a wonderful facilities. Now it's our turn. You guys, it's been your turn for a while, but we're going to continue. Now it's our turn. It's time for us to move forward, continuing to invest in the lives of those who are going to come in before us. Now, how do we do this? I'm going to put this into something tangible here in just a second. But as we talk about moving forward, what we see today is totally different than what it was when we moved here in 1996. When Pastor Harris moved from W Street up here, when you came up 9 Mile Road, does anybody remember what? Okay, there wasn't. Milestone community used to be I remember someone said it was like a helicopter field. Okay, that was before my time. I came just as you guys finished the building. There was a whole, before Milestone community, there was a helicopter field that sat here. They went ahead and started building out here. And as you came down 9 Mile Road, it was simply a 2-lane road that came all the way down. In fact, I used to live off of Old Palafox. And I would come to, and I could get to church, and literally from where I used to live, I could be over here in a church in less than 5 minutes. There wasn't a whole lot of traffic back in the day. There was no Lowe's. There was no Home Depot. There was not a lot of anything down here. This was a place where you came for lifestyle and country and good, clean air. Today, when you go down 9 Mile Road, what do we have? We have a 4-lane road that goes all the way down, and we see building happening everywhere. There's apartment complexes that are just blowing my mind, and Barry keeps going, I don't know where all these people can work. I mean, where are they coming from? And I don't know. All we know is they keep building. God has put us in a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful place that we can look forward. Yet as we look back, when we moved to this area, Milestone, this whole area was predominantly older families and older families. Today, this neighborhood looks nothing like it did when we moved here. It is made up of young couples who are moving in, coming for jobs at Navy Federal. In fact, it just continues to grow, and everywhere we look, there's apartment complexes. It is changing fast and drastically. What should our church look like? It needs to begin to look like and reflect our community. As we begin to go forward, as we begin to talk and figure out how do we move forward in the directions that we have got to continue to move, our church needs to reflect our community. Over this last year, we have continued to map our church. In fact, we've been mapping our church for the last couple years, and we have continually, on averaged about 43 people in attendance for the last. We lose people, we gain people, we lose people, we gain people, but it's just averaged out at approximately about 42, 43 over the last years. We have high days, we have low days. But it's averaged out continually over the last 3 years, approximately 43 people. What should we look like? What could we look like? And by the way, as we're talking about what could we look like, we're not talking about, hey, we're trying to become a mega church. That's not what we're looking at. But we are saying as a church, we need to be a church that is forward-focused, that is growing, that is trying to reach our neighborhood, that is saying we look like our community around us. Can we stop, put a number on it? By the end of the year, I think we should be averaging around, at least, if we're running 43 on average now, it should at least be 50. By this time, the end of next year, we should be running at least 60. I mean, those aren't big numbers, are they? But we should be looking to say we should be moving forward. We need to see something and put a number on it and go, hey, not because numbers are important, but if people matter to God, they should matter to us. Faith, family, and forward. These 3 words. They help direct where we're going. They've helped direct who we are. They've helped direct who we've been. What can you do? Let's be honest. Most of us have been in part of so many things that we get kind of tired. You volunteer week after week after week. You give, you give, you give. What can we do? Well, here's the point. I need you. We need each other. Are there things that we can all do, that we can all be a part of, that doesn't require a lot of extra? Yes, I'm going to give us 4 things that I think we can all do. Number 1, I need you to be proud of your church. It sounds so simple, but I need you to be proud of your church. What we are proud of, we do what? We talk about. What we are proud of, we talk about in a good way. If I was to come to you this morning and ask you about your favorite football team, whether it's college or pro, and some of you guys are, no, you're not pro, but you're going to do college. Some of you are going, I don't have time to waste on college. I'm going pro all the way. It's New Orleans Saints. We know that, right? I can't mistake it. It's Alabama. Okay. You guys, okay. What we're proud of, we do what? We talk about. So when we stop and we say, hey, what can you do as a part of your church? As we begin to look forward, let's stop and say, hey, I am proud of our church. There's certain things that we do and that we try to make it, hey, if you're proud of, let's make it easy for you to talk about. That's why we do these little cards. We try to change them up, make them do. Because when we're proud of something, we want to share it. You ever found one of those handy-dandy newest knives that get on the market that, hey, for $19.95, you can own this amazing knife that chops and dices, and I mean, it's amazing and doesn't allow your vegetables to stick to it. And when you get, I'm so excited about it, I got to tell someone. Will you be proud of your church? Number 2, will you make a point to welcome new people? We already do. I know. But all I'm saying is, hey, these are the things that as we begin to look forward to, that you can be a part of that doesn't require anything extra. Will you see and notice those who are new? Will you see and notice not those who are just new, but those who are different than you? Will we not see someone and begin to categorize people as they're older, they're younger, they're different color, they're different ethnic, they're different socioeconomic background? Will we stop and see each other not as our differences, but as what God has called us together to do? Will you welcome people because that's what we already do and what we can do? Does it require any more? No. But I need you to be a part, and this is how we all can do something extra, is we just stop and say, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to hug someone on the neck, and I'm going to just say, hey, I'm glad you're here. Number 3, it's what we already do. Hey, Pastor, you're not giving us anything great. Yes, I'm just saying, this is what we're called to. May we focus on it, and may we continue it. May we not just make a point of welcoming each other, but will we stop in and will we see each other as family? Will we stop and see those who are older as a dad, a mom? Will we stop and see those that are younger as a son, a daughter? Will we see those who are the same age as a brother or sister? And will we look at each other and go, hey, distance may separate our blood family, but you know what? I know I have a family. And may I truly care for what someone else is going through. It is so easy that get caught up in what we have going on in our own lives that we miss the fact that we're called to be there for each other. Will we see each other as family? So, this is basic, but I love it because it's who we are. Will you be proud of your church? Will you stop and make a point to welcome people? 3, will you stop and see each other as family? And number 4, will you help us to continue to invest in the future? And as I talk about this is not just financial. This is, will you stop and will you continue to volunteer where you can? And those things that you can do. Hey, you guys already go way and beyond, but will you continue to do that for us? Those who go down and volunteer at the Pensacola Dream Center, will you continue to do that? Will you continue to stop in and say, this is who we are, this is what we do? To those who volunteer in the nursery, will you continue to say, hey, I can do that? To those who continue to help, and everything we do, look around here. Will you just continue to invest? For those who have given so much over the years so that we can be here, may we stop and have something to pass on to those who must come behind us. We don't have an option, by the way. We must move forward. May we stop and say, what will it take for us to invest in the next generation? What will it look like? Will it look like me saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be thankful for when Craig, and he gets up there and he leads us in a new song I don't know, and that's so, Craig, it's so hard, I don't know that song. Can we stop and say we're seeing it as a moment of investing into our future? Will we stop in, and every time someone does, will we just stop and say, hey, I'm volunteering in the nursery, and I know we've only got 2 kids in the nursery, but I'm going to volunteer because I'm investing into the future. Whatever we do, may we stop and see it as, hang on, we're going to be investing in, because we must pass our faith on to the next generation. It must not die with us. We have a bright future ahead of us. Our neighborhood is growing.